So we'll count on the fact that no more interesting jokes or all of that fun stuff because you're all being recorded now. So be careful. Uh, Thanks again to everybody joining us today. Today we've got Heather doing a lunch and learn for us and walking us through advanced use of Kahoot. So lots of people out there interested in seeing what we're doing. So great work, Heather, and I'll turn it over to you and get out of your way. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm going to work on some techniques or skills or ways to navigate the land of Kahoot. I would imagine most of you have maybe dabbled in the waters of Kahoot, but maybe don't know how to have, let's say, an efficient workflow or the level of creativity that can come out of it, or even maybe some of the new features that exist. So that's what we're going to work on today. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing some content here. You guys, hopefully you still can navigate and you're hearing me. My audio should still be going. So with this kind of Kahoot, I would recommend, if you haven't, my first tip is if you haven't gotten into your corporate-based account yet, get into your corporate-based account with Mark. So talk to him about that so that you can have all of what would be the premium features of Kahoot. So that was just a note I wanted to say kind of in advance. So today, as we're going through materials, I have the following goals that I would hope that you're able to kind of achieve from this lunch and learn. So one, we're going to explore together those advanced features. So you knowing how to do that exploration leads you to then achieve the second goal, that hopefully your navigation gets easier and your creativity with the content. Ultimately, then I would want you to get to the point where you can now design, whether it be an isolated Kahoot itself that maybe is a little bit beyond something that you've done currently, or even getting to what's called a courses feature. So there's 4 key things that I'm going to kind of like focus on and work through as we go out to the physical Kahoot site itself. And I'll be creating kind of simultaneously as we're going through some stuff. So just allow a little grace if there's any glitch-based issues with that, but I think we should hopefully have it fly pretty good. The first thing I'm going to focus on is on the Create site, there's a Discover feature, and I'm going to walk you into that and what that looks like and show you how to expand. There's actually multiple points within the Kahoot site that you can discover. And you'll see under that I say, work smarter. I'm a huge fan of like work smarter, not harder. I tell the students the same thing. I want you to have efficient workflows. Study smarter, not harder. Hopefully after we set some groundwork with that, then I'm going to show you, now that you know how to have the workflow be smarter and more efficient, let's talk about that creativity component. I know that we're across multiple programs. Some of us are health professions, some of us are in nursing, but there's a lot of variety in here that I think can fit the box for any one of us. Especially I want to have the nursing faculty be paying attention. I think there's possibility here for low stakes formative assessment for that next generation NCLEX kind of mindset. Then I want to show you guys a teamwork feature. Some of you maybe have already actually like tried out using Kahoot in a team, and you've just maybe formatively told the students in the middle of class, like, hey, I want you to form a team to do this. They've actually enhanced some of the feature with that makes it pretty great for students, even in a synchronous or an asynchronous setting. And the last thing I'm going to show you is now the courses feature. They used to call this a content collection. It's changed a little bit, but this is really that moment, like, how can you go beyond with what you can do with the software and maybe even use this as some type of way to assign a student group to even create and collaborate content for you. So the next thing is, I hope you guys are ready to explore. So let's go ahead and navigate over to the Kahoot site itself. I'm going to do just the driving first on my own, and then I will be asking you guys to participate at some point here as well. So I will want you to have that second device on hand so that you can navigate there when we're ready for that and sharing things together. So when you go to the Kahoot site itself, the first thing I want to kind of have people pay attention to maybe a little bit more is what this just landing page looks like and how you even harness the power of discovery. So this first piece, we want to, how do we discover? How do we work smarter, not harder? I think sometimes faculty navigate away from this page too quickly, and it can actually be pretty helpful for you to get that just initial glimpse. So what is one feature in here that I utilize regularly? I assign a lot of Kahoots. So I utilize them in an asynchronous and a synchronous manner. So one of the first things I always check when I go to my landing page is right underneath here with assignments. I can see really quickly what is that snapshot view of Kahoots that I have running, and I can see where the ones that have ended and how many days left are on my existing ones. So I think that that snapshot view of assignments is really, really helpful. That can navigate you really quickly then just to reports if you want to get that temperature read of how things are going. So when you go over here into the reports, you want to select all reports versus hosted reports. There's a difference. All reports would be the entire institution who has the Nebraska Methodist corporate account. Hosted by me would be your games. And you can see I have 492 that have happened. And you can see that I have then a listing with this of all of mine, and I can go back at any one time to any one of these. And you can nicely get, well, what was the game mode of how these were played? Some were live, some were assigned, and I'll talk about the differences with that. But the nice part about getting to this landing page quickly is you can determine what you want to do. Maybe I had a low amount of students that played this and I want to actually, incentivize this or get them back to that formative learning. I can quickly pop it open again and reassign the date out. Send the link again and let them know, hey, I've extended this. Maybe I want to just see what the physical report is. So like here's an exam review one. I can easily pull this open, and I love their new reports feature. This is an important kind of discovery moment on the backside for a faculty. It's going to kind of tell you where students were at overall between the players, but you can also start to see what were the difficult questions. You can easily siphon these off to create a new one. So that would be the first thing right here is you can just go create a new Kahoot. So those ones that were like the most missed questions, you can formatively ask them right away to repeat those. So this is where I play sometimes with my end time windows for when I assign these. And maybe let's say this was an exam review and I assigned it to have its end deadline, let's say 48 hours ahead of an actual exam. So hoping that the students are at least studying for a test a couple days ahead, which is wishful thinking, right? But at that point, if they hopefully have, I can say, okay, after that point, I'm going to pop back over your most difficult questions so you can start to be able to do better metacognition. You know not only where your weaknesses were, but what were weakness areas of other learners. That can be helpful. And most of the time as faculty, you can predict where this is going to be. Like I usually know sometimes where these are before they happen. But it can allow me that moment to try to demonstrate to students even the technique of a muddiest point. Sometimes they don't know their muddiest point till it's pointed out to them. And this is a nice way to be able to do that, is just to pop that create feature right after one has happened. I'm going to take a pause right there. Is there any questions on that as a discovery feature for how useful a report can be? Lindsay, go ahead.
Yes. So when you say you're creating a new Kahoot with the only difficult questions, is that based on their response the previous time, or is it based on what you select as difficult?
It is based on, if I click this right here, it's going to create the Kahoot based on what was the aggregate of all the users who took it, the most missed questions. So you can see it now generated that based off of the most missed questions. And I have the capability still at this point, Lindsay, to tailor this learning moment if I want to. If there's still something like when I went back and looked at that report, if there was still something that I thought wasn't at a threshold I would want it, like let's say there was really a critical enduring concept that maybe only performed at 70%, and I really want it before that test to be at, let's say, 85, 90% of the students really being sure they know this, I still have the option to go and add that question right in here. And I can search my own bank, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Did that answer your question, Lindsay?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions about utilizing this report-based feature? Because I think this is a power to kind of harness if other people maybe haven't done that yet. Yes, Lane. Go ahead, Lane. Did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to unmute. I was wondering if there was a specific number of questions that you select as the most difficult, like, or what, how does it figure out what the cutoff is?
I think the cutoff that it usually uses, just from utilizing this feature enough, because you can expand to actually see all the questions with it. I think that the Kahoot, you can see the response rates to the side here for the correct and incorrect. I think that it will usually go off of a 50% or below. And if there's a lot of them, like and it depends on how many questions, Lane, I should say that. Like, it is usually going to establish a cut point with it. I think the base that it usually draws is like a 50% or below, but let's say that all of the students were performing pretty well. Maybe most of them were still like an 80 to a 90%. I do think it's going to like aggregate off usually this 6 most difficult. And you'll see that those were very, very low performing at a 17% on this one. But that's where, to Lindsay's point, I could add back in those ones that are a 50% and I could still go and select those. So you do have that capability to kind of tailor in between them, but it gives you the most fast and efficient starting point for those most missed questions, is that right in the summary, you can just hit create. Go ahead, Lane.
No, that's it. Great. Thanks.
Perfect. Any other questions about this reports-based feature? I think that, again, that's an important discovery point. And I'll walk one more time. You can easily get there right off of that homepage. Just look in that assignments, select that, or just go to the reports at the top banner here. But it's a fantastic tool that I'll utilize a lot and be able to just open something up, extend, or redo the most missed questions with them. The nice thing I want to point out is you could do this then synchronously as well. Sometimes that's the benefit of having these, is if I want to just go ahead and open this, maybe then I had them in class the day right before this test. I could physically have them perform this in class too, because you can always assign Kahoots in a live or synchronous manner and an asynchronous manner. All right, so what is the other feature with Discover that we want to work on? So now that we've looked a little bit at the reports-based feature, let's literally physically focus on Kahoot puts Discover in this top banner. Use it. Work smarter, not harder. I'll even show you like how fast that you could do this. I see Kate in the room. I'm going to put in radiology technique. Radiology tech, radiology technique, and you can start to find even like other Kahoots that other people have created. I can nicely just look into that. Like, let's say, here's a radiology midterm. Maybe it has a base of something that I want, Kate, that I could utilize. So here's my tip for this. You don't have to, at this point, decide if you want all of those questions. You don't even have to decide at this point how you want to edit them. All you would want to do is go to the 3 ellipse right here and simply just say duplicate. When you duplicate it, it's going to bring it over into your physical Kahoot account, and it's going to give you all of that capability at this point for you to be able to modify it as you wish. Maybe I only want 2 questions out of this because it looks like some of it's about a dog, but I could take the ones that still would apply. So this Discover feature is really, really powerful. Even if we look at it, let's say like nursing assessment. What exists in here already about nursing assessment? The nice feature with this too is sometimes when you find and discover these, maybe you also just want an infographic off of it. Kahoot is really started to expand with its image bank as well. So maybe that's a feature that you want to take off of it. Again, I recommend that you do these quick searches, and I'm going to teach you how to place them into your library as fast as possible. So you just do the 3 ellipse and you say duplicate. But remember, I said, what if you don't want everything? You don't want all the questions. You just want a few of them. And how do you cull those off as quickly as possible to efficiently make your own Kahoot? Here's what I recommend is that you go to the library feature ahead of you trying to discover what you want. Go to the library feature. In the library feature, you can add a new folder. So let's just say test folder. We want to create this test folder that we're going to then just cull some Kahoots over to really quickly. So what you can do is just go back to that discovery. And if I want to do, let's say, nursing assessment content, and maybe I really like this one, I'm just going to say duplicate right away. it now shows up over into my own library, and I can easily now move this into that test folder. What is the benefit of doing that? Is that I can get a centralized location about all the content that I want. So when I go to now create my own, I can easily search that material in a centralized location. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'll slide it over into the test here. Let's go back. Maybe I'm going to grab another one. When I am back into this Discover feature, let's just say nursing assessment, and maybe let's pick this one. I'm going to duplicate that one too. I'm going to now again go back to my own library. I'm going to select that I want to move that into that test folder. So now here I have 2 potential resources that give me at least a starting place for questions. And I could use them, I could choose not to, but I can modify them at this point and edit. So I at least have a starting place. At this moment, I'm going to go up to now create. So how do I use this Discover to create now efficiently? When I go to now select to create a Kahoot, you always hit the button up here in this top right-hand corner and you select Kahoot. And then you just want to begin your creation. This is the best Discover feature ever, is they have now repository question banks. So when you go to add a question, you don't have to always start by just typing your own. When you hit add a question, I can now search that question bank. This means I'm searching my entire question bank, not only that exists out on Kahoot itself, but exists in my own library. So you'll see there is 2 buttons to the top. I've placed now nursing assessment, and show all is going to still give me discovery out in the entire land of Kahoot. But if I select my library, I'm now specifically going to have a listing of some of those questions that were in those nursing assessments that I already copied over. Work smarter, not harder. Now I can make the decision, okay, I want to add that one, and then I can modify it. I want to add this one. Excuse me. In a moment, I'll even show you, you can start discovering different question types. So I'm going to take a pause there real quick and see if there's any questions on how to kind of harness that discovery tool. I'm going to exit for a second. Is there any questions on how to harness that discovery tool or anything that someone would want me to show or demonstrate again there? Does that seem like a helpful tip that people did not know, is how to do that? Work smarter, not harder. All right, so what I want to do now that you have a couple of like good discovery tips, hopefully your workflow seems like, hey, this might not be so painful to have to create an additional formative assessment. Because the truth is, this is what students want. Like, how many of you are always hearing students say to you, I just need more practice. Please give me more practice. And it feels sometimes like, oh, I already have to create the actual graded assessments. To create a practice assessment on top of that is like, oh boy, that seems like a lot that you're asking of me. This is a way to make it be more efficient. So now that you know some discovery tips, let's talk creativity. Once you do want to go into this land of creating these formative assessments, you got a little workflow going faster. How do you make it now actually more engaging for the students? So I'm going to go back to that test really quick here, just so we can see that. In this test folder, again, I can see that I already have 2 in here, and I showed you I can start creating my own, and I can easily be able, if I hit that Kahoot and now I want to create Kahoot, now you know your workflow can be sped up, that you can actually be searching within your own bank of questions. Well, let's say like this library of questions, okay, maybe I do want this one, I'm going to take it. And maybe I want this one. Great. But now I'm like, oh gosh, that's just still not enough. It doesn't feel like it's providing the students what I really want. Remember, you can still always do the show all feature. You can leave it over here and now actually ask it to select different question types. So sometimes we need students to think in a sequence. So I like that you can do this type of feature rather than just a quiz-based question, which is going to be either a pure multiple choice, or you can turn those multiple choice into select all that apply, which is incredibly valuable for many of you, especially in nursing and other people who have board exams that make students have to prep and think that way. You can easily change those. The other piece though, we need them sometimes to be able to think in, let's say, a sequence and place things in order. Of course, I love that. I teach a lot of like patho. Human disease happens in a sequence, right? We need them to be able to discriminate what they should do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, place a disease pathway in order, or let's say it was even care. We need them sometimes to know that, yes, they should select all that apply, but what would be the order they should place them in for how they would physically carry that out? You'll see that right in here now, I narrowed it down to just a puzzle one. And let's look at what it gave us. List all the steps in a pre-admission for assessment. Bam, work smarter, not harder. Most of these are fairly accurate. If not, you at least have a starting place that you can really quickly modify. And now you can easily do that. These are slide-based questions. When it shows up on a student's side, remember how your own device becomes your entry for you playing the Kahoot. The student simply will have these 4 colored boxes with the choices, and they will slide them right into the order that they need to exist. So you can get them to do that type of formative thinking that, okay, you selected everything that applied. Now can you place it in the correct order for how that pathway or how you would want to actually do that type of care? So I think that that's a great feature. I'll take a pause right there if there's any questions anybody has on how to utilize that. Does that seem like a helpful tip for people to be able to not only utilize the bank, but search the question type? I know Becca Baumeister had thrown that out there when she had done her original kind of introduction to Kahoot, right? Is here's all these different types that you can utilize, but showing the actual how do I search, how do I find those, how do I create really easily. Rachel, you asked a great question, use of photos in these Kahoots. So let's create a new question. With Kahoot, let's just pick a quiz-based question. You can do 2 different features here. You can not only insert media to the actual question portion itself, but you can insert media as a question choice, so as a part of the STEM. The photos that already exist in here, Rachel, they already have open access utilization for them. So you don't have a copyright concern on what would be Kahoot's repository of material. The other thing that I would say then with copyright, as long as things are in fair use and they're also behind like a password-based protected and you're utilizing under a 15 to 20%, and Sonia can maybe help me out of library services, but I think I'm pretty close, Sonia, then you're still okay to utilize any one of these features that you would find. So I'm going to actually demonstrate. This is a great question, Rachel. I'd already prepped that because I think this is a fantastic way to teach students how to learn, is graphically. They like to learn oftentimes visually. So how do you do that quickly and efficiently with them? I'm going to first go here. You can create Kahoots now into a lesson themselves. Not every slide within this has to be an actual question. I would recommend you try that out. You can have the Kahoot be teaching them, not just assessing them. So I'm going to demonstrate that quick. Let's say I just want to add a slide, not a question, just a teaching slide. This is like embedding essentially content and PowerPoint material or things you made in Pages or Keynote. You can take some of this and place it right into a Kahoot itself. And for the sake of this example, I'm going to pick big media because I want to use an infographic to teach them. So I'm going to place big media in here. I've added now a teaching slide. I want that teaching slide to come ahead of the question. So you'll see that I drug it up above the question. And now I'm going to insert my media. So I can pick something they already have if I wanted to, or I could have already created on the back side my own content that I want to place in, which I did in advance. So I'm going to go to upload image here, and I'm going to place in now this infographic. So as we would be going through the Kahoot, I'm going to give the students a moment. We've talked on this concept. Here's a great infographic that can teach you about colors of urine. Let's now create a question right after this. So we'll go to the question feature, and maybe we would say to them, identify which urine color is normal. And now I want to just insert again for them. I could provide them that same kind of reference just quickly within the question itself. But now I can actually turn my STEM-based choices into image questions too. Because how often do students have to do that? They have to not only be able to auditorially make sense of things, read, write, but they have to do visual integration too. So now when I go to the answers themselves, I'm going to select some different urine samples here that I've already prepped, and I will place each of those in, and it's going to show up into this question, and then I'll preview it for you here in a second to see what this looks like. But I have preloaded choices in here for this question, and I'm just embedding those images really quickly. So I'm not giving them any text to this question. This question is pure imagery. So go ahead and preview that question, what it looks like. Identify which urine color is normal. This would be a great way for students to be able to do not only a higher level of critical thinking, but be able to vary out serving the needs of other students. So for instance, I see Shannon in the room. Shannon, sometimes you maybe want them to have a very specific hand position with a technique, or maybe a very specific setting on, let's say, a Russian stem or a TENS that's going to be best practices. You could take all those images in advance and then have it loaded up here for them to have that formative practice of identify what's going to be best in this scenario. So I'm going to take a pause there. Lindsay, did that help answer your questions about uses of photos and a way to kind of harness the power of that?
Lindsay needed to jump to another meeting, but she got the answer she needed. So she got what she needed and then just left right just 2 seconds ago.
Perfect. All right. Did that seem like a good tip for people to utilize? I think that a lot of us, students may not always know that they're a visual learner, or sometimes they think they are a visual learner, but they're not great at it either, right? So let's explore one other good kind of type of question. And this is part of our creativity. How do we expand our utilization on these? So I've created in here a nice test one that can demonstrate to you even a use of audio, because our patients have to know how to communicate, right? Or not our patients, our students, right? They have to know how to communicate to other professionals, communicate also to patients. Sometimes, because I teach in the sciences and also have taught medical terminology, they really stink at this. And maybe they do need some type of just low level, just formative way to remember what terms mean. So I'm going to role play for you. This is a finding question, and my audio is not really playing well, Mark. So we're going to see if it's actually going to work on your side, if you guys would be able to. I want you guys to go ahead and we're going to play this one. So get that cell phone out, right? And you're going to be able to hopefully see it and hopefully hear it on your side or hear it on my screen. Just one question, and we'll see how people do. So 2 things that you see up here, I'm going to come back to. You can select a classic mode versus a team mode. I want you to keep in mind that team mode. I'm going to come back to that in a second, but for this example, we're going to just select classic mode. Within the classic mode here, you guys are ready to play. You either go to kahoot.it or you open up the Kahoot on your app. Go ahead and place in the game pin. And then just get yourself registered. Who cares what your nickname is, right? Just quickly get registered so we can demonstrate here maybe an audio question and see what that would be like for students as a learning experience. And if the audio won't play on my side, I'll just read it out loud as what the audio would give them, and we'll see how it works on your side. All right, I think we have almost everybody. We're going to go ahead and play, even if you're not registered. It's okay. We'll keep the conversation moving. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start here. Multi-select question. So on my side, it says patient presents with dyspnea and bradycardia. Patient presents with dyspnea and bradycardia. And you can continue as the faculty to replay the audio for them. Patient presents with dyspnea and bradycardia to see if they're able to then respond to it. I think that audio can be a very powerful tool in that respect to see if they can translate that type of information. And I can think of a multitude of examples across all of your guys' professions as to how that could be utilized for them. So I'm going to show you really quick what's the creation of one of those, because it goes pretty easy actually if you want to make one of those. So I'm going to go back to that library and I'll just head back into that test. And when we get in here to a test, I'm just going to go and I'm going to add a question here with it. And we're going to select to do that audio. Surprisingly, I've tested this out too. Sometimes, you know, when it is a automated voice back, it doesn't get medical terminology very correct. Surprisingly, this actually does really good. So all you have to do is quiz an audio and you would just type in your terminology here that you would want from them. So let's say tachypnea, and you ask it to just preview. If it's saying it close like you want, then great. Go ahead and type in the rest of your question with it. So you can easily create an audio one. I'm going to take a pause. Is there any questions with that as a new creativity feature? All right, I'm going to hit now another thing because I see Ava in the room. This could be helpful. Math, chemistry. I see there's some nursing faculty. This could be helpful even for med-based conversions. They have done another update that's really useful. So when you go to question, let's say we're just going to select a quiz question. So before they made this change, if you wanted to, like, let's say, show a formula, Ava, for having, you know, some type of, let's say, maybe the acid-base formula is a good one I can think of. You want to show them a reaction, right? You want them to have to analyze it, or let's even say just a simple math question. What people used to have to do is they would have to create an image of it and upload it. But now when you go into the start typing, see right here that there's actually a math function editor. You can easily place in now the math-based functions to create these Kahoots, rather than have to just show that to the student as an image for them to analyze. The nice part is it also carries down into the actual answers themselves, that you, once you go to type, can still place that math-based function down there as well. So chemical reactions, I think of the nursing faculty with doing some of the basic conversion math for med administrations, which we know can be a sticky, troubling point for them sometimes. This could be a helpful way to maybe groom them into some of that nice formative assessment by even utilizing the math editor feature. Is there any questions with that? All right. So I'm going to have us do a group-based Kahoot now. I told you that I was going to try to show that team-based feature. So within Kahoot, you saw when I went to go play one, you have a few different options here. First option is you can teach with it. If you say teach with it, that means that you're going to play it live or you're going to do it in a synchronous session, much like we are right now. Or you can choose to do an assign-based feature. An assign-based feature is asynchronous, so the world is open at that point for the student to do what they want. I utilize that feature a lot, so I'm going to just briefly show what does that look like for me when I do this. So I have these library collections and I have my courses listed, right? I've created lots of different Kahoot-based content in here. What I do then on the Brightspace side of things is I'm able to then have the students have a landing page for that material, and I'll provide them this inside the courses themselves. So give me a quick thumbs up. Are you guys seeing Brightspace showing now on your side? Great. I'll just take you inside one of the courses. So let's go into a patho course here. I will place in asynchronous Kahoots for them to be able to complete. And here's an easy example. Here was again that exam 3 review. I always put them under this additional resources and I have just a nice landing page for them. that gives them some basic guidelines here. You can only play this once. When you register, I want your student ID so I could track it. I could use it then and place it into a grade book if I wanted to on the back end. And then this challenge could qualify for a grade or not if I chose to. And then I give them what's the end availability. They can easily just click the links here, or if they had the app on their iPad or their phone, they could easily just place in the game pin itself to navigate to it. So with those Kahoots, what does that look like, again, for a faculty when you want to create that and assign that way? So we're going to go to this basic heart health one, and I'm going to select play. If I wanted to assign this out to you guys at a later point, I can just go ahead and click that assign. And here's a few little love note tips to give you as you're doing this. This is only end deadlines. So you need to be sure you specify that to a student. This is the date the Kahoot will close. Kahoot so far only lets you go out about 30 days in advance. So I know I had the thought, oh my gosh, I'll just create all of these at the beginning of the semester, set all of them to an end date of May 5th, and I'll be off and running for the entire term. They only allow you 30 days in advance. So you have to be sure you set a calendar reminder to go back in and keep opening them. But features that I think you should select. I noticed a pattern with students. Sometimes maybe they would give me, let's say, a false student ID, or they would want to play it multiple times when maybe I said in the guidelines they could only play it once. Here's the power of us having the premium EDU package is select this button, player identifier. Even if they try to flub around with what that student ID is, or quote unquote their nickname when they register to play, this actually captures their email. So you're going to know for sure who the student is if you wanted to go back in and place it into a grade book. Or if you wanted to have a conversation with them and say, gosh, I really noticed you are struggling with these few pieces of information. We should talk about that together. The other thing that you can do is randomize that answer order, right? We know how sometimes if they are wanting to do it more than once and they are wanting to share information, any little bit of integrity helps. So you can go ahead and select that. For this example, we're going to do this in a synchronous fashion and in a team-based manner. So I want you guys to go ahead right now. And how many people do we have in the room here, Mark? I'm going to go ahead and number you off really quickly. So I'm going to go down the line and you got to remember your number when I say it. So Becca Baumeister, you're a 1. Mark, you're a 2. Shayla, you're a 3. Chris, you're a 1. Jeannie, you're a 2. Jackie, you're a 3. Ava, you're a 1. Sonia, you're a 2. Dean, you're a 3. Tara, you're a 1. Rachel, 2. Seth, you're a 3. Whitney, you're a 1. Kate, you're a 2. Lane, you're a 3. Shannon, you're a 1. And Hannah, you're a 2. Okay, now that's the ultimate test. Do you remember your number? So now we're going to play and we're going to do the team-based mode. So I want to click start because that's going to give me a live game. When I go for this live game, you're going to see it gives me the option now, classic mode or team mode. We're going to do team mode. When I go to team mode, we're going to go for personal devices. What's the difference between the personal device versus the shared device? Shared device would be they're like face-to-face with each other and they can pass around one cell phone. Shared device also means they have to have a consensus with their answer. We're going to go for personal device. We're going to see how you guys do in your own teams. So once I select this, you got to help your team win. You remember your number. You should be a 1, a 2, or a 3. So we're going to go personal device and we're going to go ahead and start. So go to kahoot.it or go to the Kahoot app. What you want to do is you're going to see the team show up. You should register yourself now under your team. You should remember whether you're a 1, a 2, or a 3. And you want to help your team win at this point. The value here is it is individual response into an aggregate. So you can see hopefully how a team is collaborating to grow all together. So you have 2 different ways, again, as we let people register here, you have 2 different ways you can do that team-based mode. And you can see how we're in a virtual setting and I can still make students be a team together. I have tips for that. If you were running, let's say, a Zoom call, a Teams call, and you did breakout rooms, have the breakout rooms be the team then for running these Kahoots in a virtual setting. In a class-based setting, naturally, you could just number them off, much like I role modeled to you in this virtual-based setting. So I think we have some players for each team. Let's go ahead and role model this. So we're going to click start. You want to be efficient with your team. See if you can get these right. I'm going to give some ground rules, but unfortunately my audio isn't working, Mark, for my videos. So that's going to be a stinky part. So you're going to have to hear me. I'm going to be showing you a video with this Kahoot that's also giving an audio. I'll be sure to say the audio out loud to everybody. So here's your ground rule. You can't select in until you hear the end of the audio. Everybody got their ground rule? So select in as a team, because some of you, I think you're going to be fast fingers and you're going to want to jump the gun, you little cheaters. Be sure you wait till you hear the end of the audio. What does a diastolic pressure mean? You guys can read the text to understanding blood pressure. Your heart pumps oxygen and nutrients, the arteries in your body. Blood pressure is a force against the artery walls. There are two readings which blood pressure measures. Systolic pressure is the higher number. It measures the force being pushed around your body when your heart contracts. Diastolic pressure is the lower number. It measures when the heart beats and relaxes between beats. Those of you now have time to go ahead and answer. Some of you cheated and you answered before the audio was done. I saw that. Faculty are just as bad as students at breaking the rules, just like we're bad patients. So here's where I role modeled two different pieces of creativity for you. And we'll see which team's ahead when I go to the next screen. But using a video, you can actually, again, have the Kahoot not just be assessing them, but teaching them. This does take a little prep on the backside, and I'm going to show you that. Across the top, I have the actual video here that I'd searched out in YouTube. I have pre-watched this video, and I have segmented it out into the specific segments I want you to listen to, and crafted a question over each specific segment I've wanted you to listen to. And I'll show you how you can do that here in a moment. Then you're going to answer a series of questions on it. So you can create kind of, let's say, unfolding case studies. You could create your own video content that you would upload to YouTube that then you could segment out into a Kahoot and giving them that learning assessment right at the same time. Let's see what team's ahead. Ooh, team 3. I think the cheaters could have come out of that group. All right, let's go and try the next question. Again, ground rule, you cannot do it, right, until you are done with team talk. This one doesn't have a video, but do you guys see the counter? Team talk. If you were together, they have 10 seconds. Then after the 10 seconds, it's going to become live for you to be able to respond. So now you can respond. So you see the value of having this little video segment here. Some students maybe did prepare well for class and they knew the answer to this ahead of time. But what about that student who didn't? Or what about that student who didn't grasp the concept when they studied ahead of time? You give them this little learning prep segment where they still can be able to glean the information to respond to the question. And we must have a couple people hanging out there who haven't responded yet since we're not going forward. So we'll let the countdown clock go ahead and run with this one. With this, you'll again see I've segmented this video specifically so that they're having to have the learning happen in sequence with it. I want you to remember that because my last tip is going to be showing you how you can really explode Kahoot beyond. So at the very end of that video, there was also a helpful little learning tip at the end of it. So let's see the next question. Team 3 is still in the lead. Let's see if team 2 and 1 can win. Try 2 more here. What can hypertension cause in blood vessels? You get a 5-second team talk and then respond. You'll see I've also given them an image. Hopefully that helps trigger a response, even if they did not get it on the previous question with the teaching-based video. Hopefully they're still able to now glean maybe some higher level critical thinking from what they're seeing as an imagery. So I encourage use the power of images. And as Lindsay asked earlier, again, they have a large bank or you can create and upload your own. Then our last question here, this segment at the end, again, now a multi-select. Inside this video, it's going to list key things. So you definitely need to watch it on this one. You can't jump the gun totally to make sure you get all of them right. So you guys can read at the bottom here what it's saying. Select all that apply. What did you see? So now you want to select multiple ones on your keypad. So you can easily make this into a select all that apply numbered as well. Sometimes that's applicable, particularly within nursing. They want open-ended select all that apply to see if the student can do the critical thinking on their own versus you give them at least a prompt. On this one, I can flip it for you verbally. You should have 3 out of the 4 responses, hopefully, that you would come up with. So we're going to page forward for this and end it. So you guys can see that we did pretty good. A couple people said not smoking would contribute. Oh, dang. You need to come to my patho class. Whew. All right. The fun of that, like I can even see we're virtual. Some of you are even smiling. Oh, who ended up winning, right? Oh, team 3 did pull it out in the end with that one. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate just very quickly so that I can show you my last super fun feature. So I'll just remind you where we wanted to be at with things is we wanted to be sure that we could discover. I've showed you some creativity. Now you've demonstrated what that teams can look like and how students can kind of collaborate with that. I'm going to show you one, how did I do that video segmenting? Because I do think turning a Kahoot into a learning object itself can be very useful. So your teaching can happen with activity design right into it, and you're not having to maybe flip back and forth. So let's go ahead and just create really quickly, and I'll show you how that worked. When you go to create the Kahoot, now rather than me inserting an image, when I select that insert media, I am going to go ahead and go to a video. So this is where the world's wide open. It is pulling YouTube videos down for you, or you could create your own content on your iPad and load it to that YouTube itself. And I just had typed in here, I think blood pressure as a concept for it to address. And it gave me, you know, some different videos. I think that I selected this 4th one here, if I remember right. Yep, there's my video. What you want to do is when you get to this next screen and it gives you the video here, you want to just add it first without telling it where you want it to start or where you want it to stop. Why do I say that? You want to just add it first, so then you can select the copy link. That's why I pulled it over into a separate window. Once I copied the link, I could listen to it myself and then decide where I want to create those segments, because you can slice how much of a portion the student's going to watch. And so you'll see if I click the video button right down here in that left-hand corner, I can now say, oh, I only want them to watch from 34 seconds to 54 seconds, and that's going to cover the question that I want. And so you're able to set that for the students. Then what you want to do when you go to set the time, you guys will notice that I made sure to leave enough time on the back end of the video. Like if the students needed to talk about it and collaborate, I didn't want to time them out before the video had completed. So you need to know how long your segment is and then select a time past it. I gave about a 20-minute segment of a video. So maybe I'll give them then a minute to do the question as a whole. And if they then have 20 minutes of video, you know, that gives them about 40 seconds in there that they should be able to come up with the answer together as a team. I'm going to stop right there as a pause. Does anybody have any questions about that as a learning tool? How many of you are excited by that? Does that seem like a kind of cool feature to go ahead and try? Especially if you're making your own video content. I'm a big fan of, let's say, like micro lecturing where it's like 5 minutes or under, and then I could clip my own segments into here. I think that could be a really powerful way. All right. So last feature I want to show, I'm going to go back to the home screen here. This is a new feature with the Kahoot, relatively new, I should say. And especially we get this because we're a part of the EDU premium packaging. So they have the capability that you can create a quote unquote course within here. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here in a minute and give you a demonstration of one that I went ahead and mocked up for everybody so that they could see it. And I can then maybe show you, if you wanted, some fast ways that I did that. So with this, if I wanted to create a course, I would just go to this middle section here and say create. Also, if I hit this top left-hand button, you'll notice that it's giving me the option, or excuse me, right hand, Kahoot or course. So you have two different places that you can start creating a course itself. What is going to be the course? The course can be a repository of Kahoot, but you can actually mix into it documents. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I have a course in here as a demonstration. So here is a cardiovascular system. And I can start this course. I can assign out a date that I want the students, that the end date they should complete this by. What is in here, I want you to notice, is it's not only Kahoots, there's also documents. And, you know, for me, just like one isolated image, I always like to make sure that I'm varying student learning to the maximum for me. So I want to have a visual, I want to have an auditory, I want to have read, write, kinesthetic, I want to have all of the above. So in here, I started like, hopefully the students read and they've prepped, and now they can take this quote unquote course that I would send out to them. Shannon asked the question, could I embed this within Brightspace? Absolutely. Just like you saw me create a landing page, you can create a page within there and you could then have the link right in there, just like the Kahoot that I showed you earlier. So when you go to start this, I would again assign essentially just like regular Kahoot you would assign. Here's an end date. I'm going to select I want a player identifier, and I certainly want the answer order. Now I can run this live also. It doesn't have to be just asynchronous. And I'm going to show you the power of how a faculty could go back and forth. So let's say I do want to start this live. I could assign it asynchronous or live. I'm going to go ahead and start the course. The first thing, it's going to bring me, here's all of the objects within the course itself. So as a faculty, I could toggle between these when I'm the person in control with this. So we can take just this initial Kahoot, see how everybody does on their background knowledge. Then you'll see I've created a document in here. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up to just show you the possibility and the power of this. This is a learning object document that I already have in existence in a previous course. So you can see it's an infographic to show them some information, but then at the bottom, I've also placed videos. So I could say, you gotta watch the videos at the bottom, just go ahead and right click on them and open them to a new tab. So the students having to actually complete the learning information on this document. Then when they think they're ready, hopefully they got something from this. And then they would go to the next thing and complete a specific Kahoot of blood flow through the heart. Then the next document I have is a quick little formative assignment for them. And I give them an example. Can you create on your own iPad now a visual infographic for yourself of the information? And so you could give them that. Hey, go ahead and create a visual infographic of what we just learned, what you just assessed on, and see if you can create it for yourself. Then notice if I go to this left-hand side, as the faculty, I can keep going between these. The student learner doesn't have it, but in the faculty role, you can drive between them. So I could say, okay, let's learn something new. I want us to learn about the conduction system. Here's an infographic that has a hyperlink video. Let's watch this together, see what we glean from it. And then the next thing forward, let's test on it right away. I want to see how you did on this. What did you get from that? So you can see how you can build in between the Kahoots and create it. I'm even going to throw a little like lab thing out there. What if ultimately, because some of us have didactic classes and then we have clinicals or we have labs and we want them to know instrumentation or setup, or for in my case, maybe models. Maybe even at the end of it, I tag on a Kahoot that actually is making them have to do model identification. And here's a ton of pictures of the models that are pre-labeled and tagged to see how they can do with that. The last thing that I have in here is, again, hey, just like a closing little extra document. Do you want other learning resources besides Kahoot? And I gave them hyperlinks to a lot of other things within this document. How about you go play Jeopardy? How about you watch a crash course? How about you look at a virtual heart? Maybe you want to do a musical quiz, which is actually really humorous. This guy raps about the portions of the heart. It's very funny. Or maybe you want to do a purpose-based game, if any of you have ever heard of those. So it can give lots of options for how you can do that. So I'm going to take a pause right there, and I'm going to go ahead and close this course. And we have just a few minutes left for any additional questions that anybody might have over anything, and I'll see if I can answer them to the best of my ability. But my ultimate goal is that hopefully by sharing some of this information at this point, you felt like you were able to effectively explore what was happening within this Kahoot-based space. And you felt like now you can create on your own and be able to have some real innovation that can come from this. Because Kahoot is certainly more than just like a one-off little multiple choice quiz. All right, Hannah, did you have a question?
Yeah, this is great. Thank you, Heather. You're doing a lot of cool things. I hope that I can do the same. Something I've been thinking of is underneath Nebraska Methodist College, like I see my name and then I see Nebraska Methodist College. Right now, the only folder I see in there is Meg. And I was just curious, like for vertical integration, they're taking your 505. I teach them clinical conditions and pathology, and then I teach them EBP for medical model. Both of those classes, I would love to just be like, oh, by the way, don't forget Heather's content and like pull some questions from your actual course, yes. 505. Can I see that without searching like the entire, like, can I see that within our Methodist College library?
So what would have to happen is you would have to create that collaboration. And so there's two different ways that that can occur is a faculty can create an open sourced folder under the Nebraska Methodist, where you would be able to then see that person's repository, because as you noted, you can see that Meg has a folder placed in there. That would be one way, is for a faculty to open resource a library folder of their content. The other way is that course itself. If a course was created, you can invite another collaborator into it or be able to just share that forward so that they could have that link and be able to have open access. The third way that you can do it is when you're creating the Kahoot itself, you can ask the Kahoot to be listed as public, not private. If it's listed as public, not private, you can then be sure that someone knows the titling of it and they can open source search it, just like I showed you in the first feature with the Discover. And they could find the whole object themselves. Did that help answer your question, Hannah?
Yeah, it did. So if I searched 505 right now, what would happen? Would I get it?
I think most of them are probably set private because I don't have a search-based feature for the students.
Yeah.
That's where you can collaborate with people so that you can find library content.
Cool.
Great question. Any other questions? So I have like one last little tip that I would leave out there for you is the student side of this actually does look different. So when they do a search or discover, or they go to actually find a Kahoot you've assigned, they have two different options. They can actually play it or they can study it. And I don't know if any of you knew that. They can actually do on their side a study-based feature where they can choose to have it become more. Kahoot's tried to blend in a little bit of another software package. The questions can become a flashcard style for the student. Then they can choose to do a practice mode. So if like a clock gives them anxiousness, the practice mode removes the clock for them. So there's no timing on it. So they could take a question, study, find the answer, and do it. And then the last phase within that study is they would actually complete the Kahoot itself. Then there's a fourth feature. They could challenge someone else. So you maybe could say, hey, Mark, see if you can be my score. Here's how I did. I would encourage turn the students into content creators. Maybe you have this be something where they create a learning object or repository themselves that then they challenge other people to. In my example with the heart, maybe one group of students does heart anatomy. The next group of students does a conduction system. The next group of students does major blood vessels. And you can have them be content creators for you. Work smarter, not harder. All right, I think that that's all that I have unless there's any other questions. And I hope that this was a valuable session for you.
Heather, thanks a ton. That was a fantastic session. Very engaging, very exciting, and keeping us all on our toes. So I can absolutely see an expert in Kahoot out there. Thank you very much for all the time and effort you put into putting this together for us.
All right, have a great one, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Do you have a question, Seth? Oh, nope.
Hey, Heather, do you have a minute?
I do.
I have a question. How do you, can you move one quiz into the other course, or are you grouping them or organizing them by courses, of course? But how about if you find something useful in one of your course which can use in the other course? How do you move them, or is just an assignment question so that you assign